So I'd like to welcome everybody. What we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how I do a PowerPoint presentation. It's going to be a 12 to 15 slide presentation, and I'm going to put some images that may not exactly match what I'm doing, and when I type the text, it's going to basically, for the most part, be just gibberish, because I just want to show you the outline of how I do it. So initially when you start, this is what's called the backstage view, and we are going to click on a blank presentation. And this is what you're going to get. And what you initially start off with is the title page. So what I like to do is I actually like to add my slides before I actually write anything on them or put an image in them. And if you need more slides, you can add another slide. If you need to delete slides, you can delete slides. So it's not a big deal. So I'm going to pretend like it's basically 15 slides. So this is the initial title slide. So over here, you see over here underneath design where it says new slides. Notice how it's put into two sections here, cut into two sections. So I'm going to choose a style, and I'm going to choose a style here, and there's various styles, but my favorite style is the title and content because it gives me flexibility. By the way, you can always use blank, and you can always put in whatever you want. I'll leave that up to you to figure out, but I'm going to show you how I do it. So I'm going to click on title and content. Notice on the slide sorter on the left, it shows up. So I'm going to go ahead, since I already chose this style, I have two slides right now. I'm going to click on the top part and it's going to continue to put that same type of style in there. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. If I put an extra one and let's say I want to get rid of it now, I just click on it and I hit the delete key and it's gone. So first off, this is the title page. Okay, so I'm going to put my title in. Don't worry about the background right now. We can take care of that later. So I'm going to add a title. Let's say it's on the technological singularity. Have y'all heard of the technological singularity? Look it up. It's interesting. And the subtitle, perhaps I'm going to put my name. And perhaps I might even put the date. What you put on here is up to you. Let's say it's June the 18th, 2018. So I have my initial title slide here. So, okay, it is the 18th. So now I'm going to go to the next slide. And something you need to think about. The idea here is you actually probably want to sketch out what you want in your PowerPoint before you do anything. Okay? So the thing is, whenever you start a story, whether you're telling somebody a story, whether you're writing a paper, or whether even you're doing a PowerPoint, what do you usually talk about first? You're going to sort of set up an outline. Okay? So this is going to be about the technological singularity. And what are the things you want to talk about? Perhaps we want to talk about the past, or let's say the beginnings. Where did it begin? And one of the things when you do a PowerPoint, one of the things you have to understand is you're normally not going to use complete sentences. Okay? You normally don't want to use complete sentences. Uh, the idea is it's a guideline for when you give it. If you have a kiosk, for example, in a mall, that's something different. But I'm looking at this from the point of view of actually giving a presentation in person in front of a group or a class. So let's say I'll have the beginnings. Where did it start? Okay. How about the past? A present situation. The future. The bad. What could go wrong? What could go good? So notice here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whenever you do a presentation, you want to stick, and we'll talk about this later, you want to stick to the 6 by 6 rule. No more than 6 words by 6 lines. And even in this presentation here, for example, I'm doing 6 different subject areas. So continuing on, we have the 6 different subject areas, and this talks about what we're gonna have in our presentation. This is what we're gonna discuss basically. Okay, so I have the beginnings. By the way, you might want to save it. Let me save it. Let me save it in Documents, and I'll just see what the name it is. Okay, so you want to save it often because things can go wrong. All right, so Perhaps I want to talk about the beginnings. Perhaps maybe I want to change this a little bit. I just had another thought. And let's say I want to call it the definition, because the definition might be very important. So normally you do want to sketch this out beforehand. So we'll have the definition, past, present, going ons, the future, the bad, and the good. So this might be the only location or only point in my slideshow where I'm actually going to do more than 6 words, correct? And the technological singular are essentially when a network or computer becomes self-aware, and you could add on blah 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 blah, so forth and so on, and continue to add things on. And okay, so I have my definition. And then where I'm going on from here, what's the next thing? Oh, what happened in the past? And I could put the past, okay? And then I can continue writing about the past. And this is gibberish, of course. I'm just giving an example. Okay, and there's 2 bullet points, 3 bullet points. No more than 6 by 6. Let's just say I stop there. So I'm talking about the past, but where I change here is I like to reinforce things. So what are our modes of learning? We can see things, we hear things, we touch things, right? That's how we usually learn. So you're gonna hear from the speaker, which in this case is myself. You're gonna see the words, and what else actually makes a really big impression on us as people? Seeing images. So what I like to do after I talk about it is normally I like to put an image, and we're still talking about the past. And this kind of slide gives me flexibility. Notice here I have different options here. By the way, you never really want to use online pictures, okay? Why don't you want to use online pictures? Because those tend to change. You can put a video, so forth and so on. I'm going to put an image, okay? And I'm just going to choose one that really makes no sense, but we'll just go ahead and put that. And by the way, your image, you can, just like in Word, you can frame it, you can do all sorts of things. This is called a contextual tab. It's specifically for images. Okay, so I have my image. So now I'm on slide number 5. The next one is the present situation, right? So I can talk about the present. And remember, these are just guidelines. These are your note cards. These are also the note cards for the audience. You're letting them know what you're going to talk about. So when you talk about these things, you're not going to read off of it. You're going to have basic points, and we could talk about Big Blue. We could talk something similar. We could talk about Google. And you can go into each one of these 1 or 2 word points here, and you can elaborate on it. You can talk more about it. So you'll be talking about each one of the points. So talked about the present. So what did I do here? I put an image. So slide 7 already, mind you, we're going to talk about the present, and we're going to give an image that actually makes a point. Once again, these images are not exactly relevant. And notice how this is a really small image. What's the problem with a really small image? What can be the problem? It can get pixelated. So just be careful with the size of your images. So we can talk about the present somehow. This is in Big Blue, but somehow we could say this is related to the present. They're already talking about some robots that'll be able to, go around and be sentries or go in your house and wash the dishes even, but that's a story for another day. So we talked about the present. What do we have next? We have the future. So we can talk about different aspects of the future, some general aspects, okay? And that's up to you to determine how you would want to put that together. So then we go to slide 9, and once again, I am putting an image. By the way you do your PowerPoint can be different, but you really have to think about it. More important than what you're actually writing here is the structure. You want to set the structure before you actually do this, okay? So let's say we have pictures. Let's just put this image in here, okay? So we have the future, so we got that image in. So what's next? Okay, let's see what's next here. The bad. What are some of the bad things that could happen? And notice how I am the bad. This doesn't have to be complicated, okay? Doesn't have to, and what I always say is to my students is that what's more important is what comes out of your mouth than what's on the screen. And for example, some people may take an hour or 2 hours doing the prettiest PowerPoint presentation, but yet they don't take time to understand their subject matter. When you do a PowerPoint and give the presentation, the most important aspect is the actual knowledge that you already have. So we'll talk about the bad, and when we have the Terminator scenario, right? Um, we have many other different things we can talk about. And then we go to the next one, slide 11. We're still talking about the bad, except this time we're going to put the associated image so everybody sees what I'm, what I'm doing here. I have a structure that I'm working on. So after we have the bad, I do believe we have the good, right? And notice how we're already on slide 12. So I could talk about the good, perhaps immortality, if you would consider that good. That's a debate for another day. No disease. There's all sorts of things that you could talk about. And 12 to 15 slides could easily give you a 30 to 40 minute presentation, quite easily. One of the mistakes people make is they make too many slides. Have you ever been to a presentation where they have like 50 slides and then they're trying to rush through it to get in all the slides? In many cases, in a PowerPoint presentation, less is better. So we have the good, and then we still have the good. We're talking about the image. Do I have anything that kind of shows good here? Um, let's just say this. Okay, they come in singularity. They talk about transhumanism, which is an interesting topic on its own. And then, of course, you want to talk about, you want to wrap things up. You want a conclusion, right? You want a conclusion. I mean, you could put technological singularity and conclusion. It doesn't matter, but you want a conclusion. You begin a story, you tell people what you're going to talk about, and when you end a story, you always wrap it up, right? You go back over what you just discussed. And then finally, notice I'm on slide 15 already. Perhaps I want to ask for some questions, okay? And I could probably find an image here that says has questions. You always want to ask questions at the end of a presentation or when you're doing a PowerPoint. So by the way, you can delete this. Let's say I don't want this. I could just click on the edge here and I can get rid of it by hitting the delete key. Notice I had the four-way. By the way, undo. Notice I had the four-way here, the four-way arrows. Click on it, hit the delete key, and it's gone. I could put some image in here, of course. So let me go ahead and save it. So now we have our basic PowerPoint, right? And of course that's ugly, but we'll take care of that. So let's just look at the slideshow real quick. And it's there. It's all there. Okay? Present, the future, the bad, the good, the conclusion, and questions. Okay? So you're like, my God, this looks so ugly. That is really easy to fix. Right? You see where it says the design tab up here at the top? By the way, we're using the insert tab for the pictures. So you see the design tab here at the top. Notice that we have different options for the style. Okay? And you don't have it doesn't have to be super fancy. Doesn't have to be super fancy at all. Notice that looks nice, and there's different variants of this. Okay, let's leave that. All right, it doesn't have to be super special. Okay, and one other thing is you want to have you want to have it to be consistent in what you're showing. You don't want a slide that's green, then a slide that's blue, and so forth and so on. Okay? You want it to be consistent. They're not going to remember what your background is like, as long as it's okay. They're supposed to remember what you're talking about, what you're discussing. One other thing that I'll mention, I don't like transitions. I don't like animations. And I've actually, you can look up on the internet the world's worst PowerPoint ever, and you can see why a lot of animations, a lot of transitions, and some of the sounds are not a good thing. Okay, notice the sound button up here. Stay away from that. You don't want any of those cha-chings or explosions. Stay away from that. So I'm gonna go ahead and save it. Let's view it one more time. Slideshow from beginning. There it is. Looks much nicer, doesn't it? And here's our intro. Here's defined what happened in the past, what's happening in the present. You see how nice this came together? So PowerPoint really is not difficult at all. Unless you're doing a kiosk, plain and simple is all that matters. Okay? For presentation purposes, especially. So y'all have a good day or night or whatever the case may be, and hopefully this helped you just a little bit.